In October of 2022, Dave Simmons and I launched the Audiophiles, the podcast featuring two guys who know tunes, talking tunes. 3 years earlier, while regularly producing another different podcast, we did a pilot episode for the Audiophiles, which was never used. What you're about to hear is that pilot, released for the very first time. At the time, we experimented with the idea of a video audio podcast, so you'll hear references to pictures and films that obviously you won't be able to see. And one other small detail, Dave is not in the studio with me during the episode. He was at home, literally calling it in. And he had a solid good reason for hanging out elsewhere. 2019 was Major League COVID time, and like millions of others, we took precautions by minimizing actual contact. None of that, we think, takes away from the fun of batting it back and forth just as we do now, sitting at the same table in our studio on the regular episodes of the Audiophiles. And none of that, we think, takes away from the fun of the topic. Actually, a buy one, get one free, so to speak. So tune in, turn on, download at will, listen when you wanna, and enjoy Bond and Beatles on this collector's item edition of the Audiophiles.
The following program
now available stereophonic sound.
Chins up, boobs out, it's showtime.
Time for music.
civilized conversation.
Wherever the music takes me, kitten.
Scott Edward Phelps.
Ah, yes, the legendary wit, or at least half of it.
Dave Simmons.
Good evening, Dave.
Can we not talk about sex so much?
Tell you right out, I'm a man who likes talking to a man who likes to...
The most important music show ever.
Cue inspirational music.
The Audiophiles.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog.
He's the man with the Midas touch.
Well, makes me feel alright.
The Audiophiles.
We thought we would just do a little James Bond and a little Beatles. Why? Because we can. And I know you're noticing that my partner in crime is not with us. It's week 3, I believe, of his self-imposed quarantine. God bless. But we want Dave to be here. We need Dave on that wall. We want Dave on that wall. And for the occasion, he has dressed up appropriately for our Bond and Beatles show. Ladies and gentlemen, my partner in crime, good friend, and musical director since 1971, Virtual Dave Simmons, in his full Bond and Beatle regalia. I want to know where you got the button. That's a collector's item there. If you're trying to disguise yourself from Spectre, I don't think it's going to work very well because I think they see you coming a mile away. I like that gun, though. It's got a nice long barrel.
It does. It does. Yeah. Being long things.
I've heard about your nice long barrel, as I'm sure many other people have. All right, here's how we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do this. You know, inevitably, and I decided, you and I talked about doing this. We did a show like this when we were at the old studio, and I don't know, I lost it, or it got covered in spaghetti sauce or something. And I said, hey, you know, we should do this again. And you said, yeah, we should do this again. So, but I thought, you know, 30 minutes of Bond, 30 minutes of Beatles, you know, why not just make it a Bond Beatle thing? Because they are intertwined inexplicably and intertwinably through that period of the 1960s for sure. And yeah. So I thought, all right, well, let's just do it that way. So roll with me. And I know you're suffering from the fact that you can't be here to spontaneously react, but you're a pro and I know you'll deal with it. So here's what I thought. You know, inevitably, we're going to get into that conversation with the back and forth bullshit about what's the best this, what's the best that, who's the best this, who's the best that. And I just thought, well, the smart way to do it is just get it out of the way in the beginning. So let's just jump right into the best of Bond and Beatles baloney. In that spirit, I just thought, all right, we'll just bat it back and forth with a Bond and Beatles badminton birdie. It's going to be a very alliterative hour, I can tell.
I can tell.
And I'm just going to throw this at you because you have no idea what I've prepared for you today, chefs. And,
no, I don't.
Okay, well that's good because that makes it at least spontaneous on your side. I got everything written down in front of me, but you're good to go. So here's the first thing in the best of Bond and Beatles baloney. Just come at me. Who is the best Bond?
Who is the best Bond?
Who was or is? Who is the best Bond?
I'm
I personally like Daniel Craig. I think he's the best, but you have to say Sean Connery because he created the entire format of what James Bond is.
Okay. I actually agree with you. I think Craig has done a wonderful job of reinventing kind of the character. With he's a lot closer in personality in these movies with Craig than as the Bond was in the books. You know, the first couple of Sean Connery movies kind of headed in that direction, and then they steered off in the direction of gadgets and gimmicks and all the rest of that stuff.
I actually liked Timothy Dalton because he was like the precursor to Daniel Craig.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I think he was just kind of colorless, though, and he suffered from... If he'd come along first and they'd been truer to the novels in the beginning, I think he would have been a legendary Bond, but by the time he showed up, we'd already gone through Roger Moore, please, and I like Roger Moore, but I've said for years, Sean Connery was James Bond. Roger Moore was the Saint, Simon Templar. Right. He was not James Bond. So
Right.
All right, I go with Connery. I like Pierce Brosnan, too. I think Pierce did a good job with what he had to work with.
You know what? Pierce looked the part, I think, probably more than any other Bond.
Yeah, he was pretty.
Yeah, he looked like James Bond.
I'd do him. Okay. All right. Here's a fun here's a fun one for you. Who was the best Beatle?
The best Beatle.
And that's Apples and Ringo, isn't it?
Let me tell you, my favorite is Lennon. I was always a Lennon guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like Harrison a lot. McCartney, his longevity and creativity and everything is awesome, but he was always a little too bland for me.
McCartney was too bland?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When you listen to John Lennon's songs, especially midway through the Beatles, all through his solo career, he was kind of pulling the curtain back on his life and himself and the times and troubles of John Lennon.
I have always believed, and again, I'm 10 and a few years older than you are, so I was 13 or 14 when Beatlemania hit. So I was right there at the apex of it. Well, I went through the whole Fab Four, Beatlemania, yeah thing, and all the way through the evolution. They were never, ever as good as, no matter what amazing solo work they may have done or not done, they were never as good as solo as they were all together. There was just that chemistry that put it all together. But when you said McCartney was bland, I had to laugh because my feeling about it was Lennon was always edgier, but that's because Lennon was just pissed. He was always pissed off, even when he was, and rightly so. He had a shit childhood, his mom, and all the rest of that stuff. Beatle freaks know the story, and the rest of you can Google it because we don't want to spend 10 minutes telling you about the sad life of John Lennon, which, by the way, didn't end up all that well either, as I recall.
No.
Of course, it did get him away from Yoko, so everything's a trade-off.
Oh, wow.
Everything's a trade-off. But McCartney, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you something about Paul McCartney, and you're never going to see him again the same way, even just for the remainder of it. And he's nudging 80, so God willing, he'll be with us for a while. But it's not going to be a long while. Go back and watch when you have the chance, because it's a great movie. It's just a fun, great movie, even after all these years. A Hard Day's Night.
Oh, yeah.
Which was their very first Beatles film. The Beatles in their very first film. And watch the characters right there, and you'll see the essence in those characterizations, and they were playing themselves, basically.
Right.
You'll see the characterizations of who they really were. Lennon was edgy, sarcastic, snarky, not mean-spirited in the movie, but you can tell there's that undercurrent of him always wanting to say, fuck you. And he just, okay. George Harrison was a very funny guy, very dry wit, very laid back, and he showed. Ringo was just a guy who played drums really well and was just a nice guy and enjoyed being in a band, enjoyed his people, just a nice guy, and he still is. Paul McCartney is a non-obnoxious limelight hog. In A Hard Day's Night, watch his characterization. He reminds me, years later, I realized what it was because I saw A Hard Day's Night again not too long ago, and I laughed and I said, you know what? I said this on a radio show once. Remember John Lovitz in Saturday Night Live doing the acting thing, the actor?
Oh,
I'm acting brilliant, thank you. Every time Paul McCartney makes a move or opens his mouth in A Hard Day's Night, it's John Lovitz in Saturday Night Live. I'm acting. I must get my grandfather. You can tell that he's that guy that everything is overblown. And a lot of his music, frankly, was headed in that direction. The beauty of the Beatle thing was that John was there to go, dude.
Yeah.
Take some of that shit off of there, and stop being such a geek.
You're right. You are right about that.
My favorite, sneaking into the answer to the other question I just asked you, my personal favorite through the years has evolved into George Harrison. And watch the Beatles anthology again and listen to his segments and his interviews. A very funny guy. And not but funny, just sharp wit. He knew exactly what the score was from day one. And, I like that in a person.
He was really good friends with all of the Monty Python members, especially Eric Idle.
That's right.
And Eric Idle tells the story. Do you remember when George Harrison was stabbed?
Yes.
It was shortly before he died.
Yes.
But someone had broke into his castle and stabbed him.
Right.
A bunch of times.
And his wife took the guy out with a lamp, clocked him.
Wife took the guy out with a lamp, but he had a new housekeeper there who had just started that week. And as they were taking him down the stairs, Eric Idle rushed over there. Eric Idle was there when this happened.
Right.
He said when they're taking him down the stairs, George Harrison looked at her and said, "So how do you like the job so far?"
It's an adventure. It's been a hard day's night. All right, and that while we're there, let's jump into the next best real quickly. I'm going to reverse the order here.
Okay.
And there aren't that many to choose from, but is there a best Beatle movie, in your opinion?
You know what? I liked Help, and this falls into it. It was tailored after the James Bond movies.
Yes. Oh, it was a direct lift from the Bond movie. Yeah.
So this falls together very well. But I like that. I mean, I think A Hard Day's Night's a better movie. But
I think A Hard Day's Night wears better now.
Right.
It's still kind of engaging and delightful, and Help seems very dated. But yeah, I can see where
it's dated, but it was campy. It was in color. I did like Help a lot.
Okay. I like A Hard Day's Night just because of its a whole bunch of stuff. It just evokes that period in time, and it has that feel, and it was clever and well done and witty and fresh, and it really was it. And strangely enough, I say, we have a tendency to look at these things and say, well, these were the good old days. Well, this was like July in 1964. It had only been like 7 months since John Kennedy had his head blown off in Dallas, and the Vietnam War was starting to crank up. Every generation has its shit going on.
Right.
But there was something very fresh and very, as far as Help goes, I think I may have a thing against Help because I used to get a lot of crap from my schoolmates because for some strange reason I thought it was funny to go around for weeks after the movie came out and saying things like, "You're wetting the ring. You've got the ring." Beatle guys know what I'm talking about, but
yeah.
All right.
The Audiophiles with Scott Edward Phelps and Dave Simmons.
You'll really dig them, that tab and all the other pimply hyperboles.
Best Bond movie. And let's don't spend 20 minutes on it. Let's hit it and quit it.
My favorite is Casino Royale, the 2006 Daniel Craig, his first movie.
Okay.
That was his first, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. That's my favorite. And Goldfinger is a close second.
Any particular reason, Goldfinger?
Believe it or not, I watched Goldfinger 2 days ago. It just happened to be on.
Yeah.
And every time it comes on, I watch it.
Well, I've got some.
That's how I tell. That's how I can tell it. I like it a lot.
You know what? Very quickly, I think I've shared this with you once before. A long time ago, some friends and I were sitting around talking about movies in general, and somebody said, "Oh, I love that movie or this movie, or it's a great movie. And we started debating what constitutes a great movie. So we started talking about that, and we came up with a mutually acceptable description. All of us agreed. We said, here it is. If you're walking into a living room and you look over and the particular movie is on the TV and you've seen it 11 times and you're on your way to the kitchen or even outside, but you find yourself standing there watching it, and the next thing you know, you find yourself sitting there continuing to watch it. That's a great movie.
Exactly. And, for me, The Godfather, movies like that, whenever they come on, I watch.
Yeah. Believe it or not, Braveheart does that for me, some reason. When I see Braveheart, I always stop, and then I'm like, oh, and then, oh. If I hit it at about the time where the guy cuts Murren's throat and then Mel goes ape shit and kills the rest of them, and I'm like, yeah, I like this one.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a big Braveheart guy. A funny, and Julie makes fun of me, a movie like that for me. Have you ever seen Havana with Robert Redford and Lena Olin?
Yeah, once when I was trying to get laid. And the girl really liked Robert Redford and Lena Olin for some bizarre reason.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I tell you what, whenever that movie comes on, I sit down like a mental patient and watch it.
There you go.
I don't know why, but I just it's a good movie, I guess.
Yeah, my favorite Bond movie is that's hard. You know what? I have to cop out. I have a favorite Bond movie of all the Bonds, with the exception of Roger Moore. It's not. I don't have a Donald Trump hatred of Roger Moore. I have a dislike that they cast him as Bond, and it just didn't work for me. But other than that, but if I had to go, I would say Goldfinger, because Goldfinger is the peak of the movies that still kind of stuck to the book and didn't get too far away with the gimmicks and the gadgets, although they had a few. But after that, it was mostly gadgets and crapola until Daniel Craig showed back up. All right, real quick, Bond theme songs. There's only been a limited number, but there's quite a lot to go. You got one in particular that jumps out and you go, wow, I love that song. It's the best Bond theme song ever?
Obviously, Live and Let Die.
Mm-hmm. Which is a Beatles song, which is, wow, that connects to the whole show.
Exactly. I honestly liked the Chris Cornell, You Know My Name.
Casino Royale.
Yeah.
It was the theme song. It was the theme song to Casino Royale.
Yeah. So I like that. I like that one a lot. And, God bless my Duran Duran heart, View to a Kill. Duran.
Yeah, that whole period is lost on me, but that's because I'm older and I have more insurance.
I just like the song. I did like one Roger Moore movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. Did you like that one at all?
I didn't like any of the Roger Moore movies.
Really?
I just couldn't get behind Roger Moore being James Bond. I saw Sean Connery, I saw James Bond. When I saw Timothy Dalton, I saw James Bond. When I saw Pierce Brosnan, more or less, I saw James Bond, Daniel Craig, etc. When I saw Roger Moore, I saw Roger Moore pretending to be James Bond.
He was very campy,
Exactly, and that wasn't Bond to me. That was more like the original Casino Royale back in the 60s when they did it with Woody Allen and, it was a whole campy Peter Sellers. It was just, no.
Didn't Dean Martin do a Bond ripoff series?
Matt Helm.
Matt Helm.
The Silencers and several others. That was actually a series of books similar to the Ian Fleming books. This guy wrote Matt Helm mysteries or Matt Helm spy novels or whatever, and they did the same thing with those. Real quick, by the way, before I forget to tell you, Tom Jones, of course, did the theme song to Thunderball.
Yeah.
But I just did a 45 RPM podcast where I kind of go and do different kind of stuff, and I found alternative versions of songs that were either done and never used or submitted and turned down, and believe it or not, and I've got it, I have to bring it in one time, we'll play it on the show. Those who remember Tom Jones singing Thunderball, and he strikes like Thunderball. Okay. I have the recording, I have the recording of a guy who wrote a song and submitted it to the producers, was asked to write a song and submit it to the producers, and he did a demo to be the theme song to the James Bond film Thunderball, Johnny Cash.
Really?
And you ain't lived till you've heard Johnny, and it's a Wabash Cannonball kind of I Walk the Line sort of rhythm. He's a thunderball. Can you picture Sean Connery swimming around in his scuba gear underneath the water with the credits rolling and Johnny Cash going, he's a thunderball.
Actually, no, I can't. But speaking of the Bond songs, if you tell me you don't do this, I'm not going to believe you, and I'm going to say, Scott, you've never lied to me except for now.
I don't do it when anybody's around, but
when the Goldfinger theme comes on, do you, at the top of your lungs, go, Goldfinger?
If I don't do it out loud, I certainly do it in my head. They call that the Bassey effect. That's Susan. Yeah. Shirley Bassey. That's how
Shirley Bassey.
Goldfinger. It's actually, you know what it is? It's at those moments she's possessed by Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
Hey, lady. Yeah. All right.
I did that 2 days ago with the theme was playing, and Julie just stared at me. I was like, Goldfinger.
Well, you should look up Shirley Bassey because she not only did Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever and Moonraker, but she's an accomplished cabaret performer of many, 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 many years. She sings everything like that. That's.
Is she still alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's still, it doesn't matter what the song is. Yesterday. I'm like, oh, man. Speaking of yesterday, back in a second. Hang on.
You're listening to the Audiophiles.
Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be
watching and listening to a very special episode with my virtual friend 00 Dave Simmons. And all right, Dave, I got a little thing for you. We're going to have some fun, or else. And here's what it is. It's kind of a trivia meets Jeopardy meets game show meets little thing, and I like to snappy title for cable TV. I call it Bond or Bullshit.
Bond, James Bond.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
And thanks for coming over. Don't let the car door hit you on the way out. All right, here's how it works. I got a little thing here. All right. Basically, I'm going to just give you a statement. A yes or no answer, a true or false statement. Each one will be obvious when I say it to you. And you give me your answer, yes, that's correct, or no, that's incorrect. If you get it correct, if your answer back to me is correct, you will hear
Bond, James Bond.
And if your answer to me is not correct, you will hear
I expect you to die.
Okay. All right, here we go.
That sounds fun.
Well, you know, it's what I do. Aretha Franklin was the original choice to sing the theme song to Live and Let Die. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, she was?
Yes, she was.
You are...
Bond, James Bond.
You're correct.
I heard that somewhere before.
Yeah.
I don't know where, but I've heard that before.
Harry Saltzman, who was of Saltzman and Broccoli, who were the two producers who originally created the original Bond films, they commissioned Paul McCartney to write the song. He wrote the song. He demoed the song. George Martin produced the demo. And Martin took the product to Saltzman and Broccoli. Broccoli wasn't there, and Saltzman said, I love the song, spectacular, thank you so much. I'm thinking Aretha Franklin. What are you thinking? And George Martin said, Paul's thinking Paul, or you're not getting the fucking song. How about that? All right. Michael Collins is the real name of Gert Frobe, the actor who played Goldfinger. Yes or no?
No.
You are
Bond,
correct.
James Bond.
But Michael Collins has a little place in Bond history. He dubbed the entire dialogue track of Gert Frobe because they hired the guy not realizing he couldn't speak English.
Right.
So that's Michael Collins' voice you're hearing when, you know, Gert Frobe had been in a bunch of movies before. That story almost sounds like an urban legend or something a little bit of, now, nevertheless, makes for fun. All right. George Martin, I just mentioned, produced not only the song Live and Let Die for Paul McCartney. He not only produced that, but he also produced the theme songs to From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. Yes or no?
No.
You're telling me no.
You know.
And your answer is incorrect.
I expect you to die.
He did. He did, in fact, produce the session. Matt Monroe sang From Russia with Love, and Shirley Bassey. He produced that record as well. All right.
I did not know that.
You're okay, though. You're 2 for 1. Ian Fleming got the inspiration for the number 007 from the product code on a can of peas in his pantry, in his little Jamaican home there, the one called Goldeneye.
That does not sound familiar to me. I'm going to say no.
And
Bond, James Bond.
You're correct. It was actually the number of the bus route between Canterbury and London that he took when he was visiting the city.
There you have it.
All right. A portion of you're going to know this, I'm sure. A portion of the James Bond theme is actually used in a Beatles movie. Yes or no?
Yes.
Bond, James Bond.
Yes, it is, and I'll be playing it for you. Actually, I'm going to give you a heads up right now. At the end of the episode today, the end credit, the music underneath the end credits, au revoir, see you later, is that piece of music, and we'll explain that as we get a little closer to it. All right, real quick. One of these Bond theme songs is actually not a Bond theme song. You got to tell me which one.
Okay.
And you will, I'm confident. Goldfinger, Thunderball, The Spy Who Loved Me, Live and Let Die, On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
No, see, I caught you.
I expect you to die.
Trick question. Technically, yeah, On Her Majesty's Secret Service has a little theme music. It doesn't have a singing theme song, but The Spy Who Loved Me, there's no such song. The theme song in The Spy Who Loved Me was Nobody Does It
No,
Better.
Carly Simon. Shit, you're right. Carly Simon. You got me.
All right. Well, I got you because I love you. And here's the final one, and then we'll move along briskly. A Bond theme song was sung recorded and released and used in the film by a recording artist who also recorded a song written by me.
Well, let me see here.
Sometime today, dude.
That one, I have no idea.
Well, you got
to... Don Ho.
Who you calling Don Ho? You got to give me.
I have no idea.
You got to give me a yes or no answer.
I thought you were asking me.
No, I'm not asking you for the song. I'm asking you.
I'm going to say no.
No.
Yeah.
I expect you to die.
Nope. And you're going to hear it as we go out, or at least a snippet of it as we go out. Yeah, it's one of those. Hey, I got okay. The name of the song, by the way, is Crocodile Tears. We'll be right back.
The Audiophiles with Scott Edward Phelps and Dave Simmons. And
Bond. James Bond.
I think that'll probably be on my obit somewhere along the way. But
there you go.
I didn't make. You know what? I've known about it for years, and it never connected. It wasn't until I started scraping together Bond and Beatles stuff that I went, son of a bitch! I'm just one song away from being a Bond theme songwriter. How cool is that? All right.
That's too funny.
All right, you did good on that one. You'll have a chance to do better in a little while. A few minutes, we're going to do Beatles or bullshit. But right now, I thought it would be fun to talk about famous people I know who knew the Beatles. And actually, Dave, you may know people who knew the Beatles as well, but I thought I would throw it open first of all. And I don't actually know the guy. Didn't know the guy. He's not with us anymore. I had the pleasure of interviewing him for a radio show a number of years ago, about a half an hour's worth of chit-chat. He was very conversational. Andrew Gold, who was Lonely Boy, and, of course, Thank You for Being a Friend, the Golden Girls theme, and a bunch of other songs. He had a total musical pedigree. His dad was Ernest Gold, who was a film score composer back in the day, kind of the John Williams of his time. Music geeks would know. And if you've ever heard the theme song from the 1960s movie called Exodus, it's one of those songs, I go, Exodus, you go, no, I don't think so. But I turn it on and you dun, 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 dun. Hey, yeah, I know that song. That was his dad, Ernest Gold. And his mom, his mom was Marnie Nixon, a lady who did a little acting, but her main claim to fame, she was a beautiful singer, and she dubbed the singing voices of Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, Natalie Wood in West Side Story. That was Marnie. So Andrew had some musical DNA going on there. And as a result of his Hollywood connection, when the Beatles came through in 64 and 65, they had these little Hollywood soirees where they do their shows and they do their little press stuff, but then the elite would invite them to private parties so they could get up close to a Beatle. And Andrew told me in the interview that I did with him, he was like 14. And he said, please, 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 Daddy, can I go to the party? Please, please, please. And his dad said, sure. So what he did was he went to the little soiree in somebody's backyard. Picture a party at Harvey Weinstein's house without the slime and gross shit. And so the four Beatles, as Andrew told the story, the four Beatles are sitting on wooden stools in kind of an outdoor reception line kind of thing. And people are all lined up coming along saying hello. And Andy, as he was called in those days, and he told me, he said although his dad was famous, his mom was famous, to them it was just mom and dad. He said he's the first Beatle he experienced in the receiving line was Paul McCartney. Now in the picture you'll see McCartney's leaning forward just a little bit, and the reason why, Andrew told me, was that he was 14. They called him Andy. He was so starstruck that when Paul said hello and held out his hand, Andrew said. And I'm quoting Andrew now. He said, I sort of went, I'm Andy Gold. And Paul McCartney said, I'm sorry. You what? I'm Andy Gold. He couldn't hear it, so Paul's leaning forward. It's like, what's your fucking name, kid? Tell me the name. And he finally worked up enough juice to say, I'm Andrew Gold, and they shook hands, and then he went on and shook hands with the rest of them. Now, the real punchline of the story is, and Andrew told it wonderfully.
One of the strangest psychological moments for me was when I was a huge James Bond fan. On his third movie, Goldfinger. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking Goldmember, which is Austin Powers.
Mike Myers appreciates the plug.
Yeah. James Bond comes out as Sean Connery and says, and the girl says, I'd like some champagne or something. The girl was later painted gold. Anyway, but it's not chilled, and he goes, drinking unchilled champagne.
My dear girl, there are some things that just aren't done, such as listening to the Beatles without earbuds.
And here I had my favorite spy star talking about my favorite band and dismissing the band, and I thought, oh gosh, I don't know what to do.
I thought that was a charming story.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that comment. That was matter of fact, yeah. They've been running Bond marathons all week, and so I've watched quite a few Bond movies this last week. And
that was the scene where when he got karate chopped in the kitchen while he was getting the champagne out by Odd Job, and when he came back, the girl had been painted gold.
Yeah,
and she was somewhat dead. But Andrew, Andrew Gold. I mean, how synchronous is this? You know what I'm talking about? Or as our friend Cardi B would say, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? I ain't got time for that.
Somebody in the Pentagon.
That's right. Because I want to go out. Anyway, the wrap-up of the Andrew Gold story is that he went on to become very successful and very popular as a recording artist on his own, but never lost his love for the Beatles. In fact, he did issue a couple of albums of Beatles covers, just nothing but Beatles tunes. He passed away just a couple of 3-4 years ago. Way too young. I think he had just hit 60, died of heart failure in his sleep. But a really talented guy and paid tribute to the Beatles, and finally got to the point where he could introduce himself without having to say, "Hi, I'm Andy Gold."
Yeah, I wonder if he ever ran into McCartney as a successful, songwriter.
I think if you Google up, I think you can. I recall seeing some pictures. I think he in fact did somewhere along the way, and and they got along great. We'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Audiophiles.
I'll tell you something. A couple of albums that he did, that one in particular, it was all Beatles tunes. And one of the things I really respect about him, not only was he an accomplished singer and musician and all that, but he didn't try to putz them up. They are absolutely true to the original arrangements. If you happen to stump, younger people who aren't that familiar with the Beatles would hear one of those, and if they even had any remote awareness of the song, they would say, "Hey, that's the Beatles, isn't it?" No, it's actually Andrew Gold sounding like the Beatles, but he did a really cool job.
I think we discussed this at Christmas time when John Legend destroyed the Happy Christmas. I was like, I wanted to Vincent Van Gogh both my years. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was. And you can't, don't try to, I've said for years to every singer, I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter if you're the finest singer on the planet, don't do Beatles songs.
Right.
When these kids do Beatles songs on The Voice and American Idol and all that, and maybe it's just me, but I go, don't do Beatles songs because you may sing it better, technically even, but there's always going to be something missing because that stuff was that's once in a lifetime kind of stuff. And what was the other one? Oh, of course, then there's Shirley Bassey. Yesterday. But that's how she sings, man. She's like Reba. She does that. Reba's got that thing that she does with her voice.
Yeah.
Makes you want to stick a knitting needle in your ear. All right, we're talking about Bond and Beatles in the same conjecture because they were popular from the early 60s into the early 70s, and then Roger Moore came along. And while I was looking this stuff up just for fun, I actually found a couple things that even I did not know. And I thought, look, some of these people were double agents. All right, now all the trivia geeks are going, that's not a Bond theme. I know what that is. Hand raised. Shut up. There's only so many times I can play the instrumental version of Goldfinger before it starts to wear out. That's Johnny Rivers and the theme to Secret Agent Man, which is the TV play off of the Bond thing, which was very popular. But the reason I used Secret Agent, here's a fun thing, and you, Dave, you may not even be aware of this because it's just fun stuff. We talked about people who had the connection to Bond or the connection to the Beatles, but in some way, believe it or not, there were some people who had the connection to both. Young lady by the name of Margaret Nolan, speaking of Goldfinger, she was an actress and model in the day. In the top picture, she is bending over showing an ample bosom and several sets of pearls, and that's the actor Wilfred Bramble. That's a scene from A Hard Day's Night, where a grandfather has gone off to the casino to play chemin de fer and baccarat and get loaded on the Beatles' dime. And that's Margaret Nolan. She played, I don't think she had a character name. I think she was just girl in casino with ample bosom. But if you look at the picture below it, that's Margaret Nolan playing Dink, the young lady who gave James Bond his massage at the Miami Hotel before Felix Leiter showed up, and they started talking about Goldfinger. So she was actually in, and that's the same year. Those movies were released in '64, so she was a busy girl. I did not know that. Did you know about Margaret Nolan?
I didn't know about her, no.
Well, see, now you can win bar bets.
There you go.
I'm happy to help. All right. Distinguished actor. They say that distinguished British actor. That's like saying, bad rap music. It's redundant. Distinguished British actor Richard Vernon. Check this out. In the top picture, one of the very first scenes in A Hard Day's Night, the boys get on the train headed to London or wherever they're going, or out of London. The old man is in the car with them. He wants the window closed. They want the window open, and they start bantering back and forth. Ringo says something like, what was the line he used? I fought the war for your sort. And Ringo says, I bet you're sorry you won. That scene right there is the one where Lennon gets up in his face and goes, give us a kiss.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember that.
In the picture below, that's distinguished British actor Richard Vernon in Goldfinger, the scene where he and M and Bond have dinner, and they're arguing about the crappy cognac. What is it, an overdose of Bon Moi?
Yeah, right. Yes, I didn't realize that he was in A Hard Day's Night. That's crazy.
Well, it's fun. I think a part of it is maybe they just had a good agent, but the other part of it was probably it's like it happens in this country too, in showbiz. There's like 3 people that do everything, and then every now and then they switch, and it's 3 new people, but they do everything. Every time you turn around, they're doing everything. All right, and the one that really kind of locks in as the main, really most memorable or most noteworthy Bond and Beatle connection, because it still exists to this day, is actress Barbara Bach, who's featured on the car there with Roger Moore, who was not James Bond, except for those movies that he did. And then, of course, she married Ringo in 19... Married Ringo. And still married. Lovely couple.
And do you know who her sister's married to?
Isn't her sister the one who's married to Joe Walsh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there you go. Joe Walsh is. Yeah, see, I know. Well, see, I have a lot more time to sit home and Google than you do. All right, I'm going to jump ahead. Hang on.
Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know, I need someone. Help! Won't you please help me? Help me! Help me!
Audiophiles.
Man, that was like my entire childhood and half my teenage years playing itself out musically right there. All right. It's time for input. Interesting things I never know, because we just, we're like an old married couple. We just basically don't talk to each other all that much. But I'm proud and happy to call him my friend, my partner, my colleague, and musical director, and of course, the dapperest dressed guy on the show today. Yes, I'm talking about 00 Fun Simmons, Dave Simmons. I had no idea you were a part of the band. The Cap. Yes. The Cap has been with you. It's amazing that you didn't have a nickname of Cap. like Ringo, and what was the character in that thing you do? Shades, calling him Shades.
Oh Lord.
Well, I've been yammering all this prepared stuff, but I know you've got things that you just.
I've got things.
You got things.
Hey,
show me your things.
Did you know? I would gladly show you my thing.
I don't want to see your thing.
Did you know the John F. Kennedy Bond connection?
Yeah, I think I know where you're going, but just so it doesn't always sound like I know everything and I'm a know-it-all, go ahead and go with it, and I'll tell you whether that was what I was thinking.
Well, the last movie he ever watched was From Russia with Love. He got to view an early print of it on November 21st, 1963.
And the next day decided it'd be a good idea to take a drive in Dallas.
Yeah.
Not good.
So that basically was the last film. They said he even though From Russia with Love was the second Bond movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he had only seen the first one, but he was a huge Bond fan.
Yes, actually, I remember now that you've brought up the reference to him seeing the film. I had forgotten that, but yeah, not to sound smarmy. What I thought you were going with was the fact that he had mentioned a year or year and a half earlier, maybe even in 1961, right after he was sworn in, he was interviewed, and what the interviewer said, "What do you do for relaxation?" "Well, I like to, lay in the bathtub. I like to sleep around on my wife. I like to," all the things that he mentioned. And then he said, I enjoy reading. I've been a reader for a long time. Currently, I'm reading a wonderful biography of Alexander Hamilton, and I'm a big fan of the Ian Fleming James Bond books.
Right.
And those books were not all that well known at the time, but here was a young hip president who mentioned Ian Fleming James Bond books, and all of a sudden, wow.
Right.
Had there been an internet, it would have broken the internet in those days.
And then there's movies,
Yeah.
So I'm sure that he was quite excited, and being president, you get all the good things like being able to see movies that nobody else has seen. So luckily he got to see that before he took one to the skull.
Okay, I'm not laughing at you. I just thought you were going to go in a different direction with that. I said when you're president, I thought you were going to make a Goldfinger reference, and you were going to say when you're president, you can get a lot of pussy. Or as Sean Connery puts it, pussy.
Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this, and I was reading, and this came up. There are 3 American actors that were and fairly famous actors that were all offered the role of James Bond at different points. All 3 of them declined for the same reason. They believed the James Bond character should be played by a British actor. Have you ever heard this?
Well, you have to. I have to give you. I have to do a disclaimer. Okay, you have to remember that. Besides the fact that I sort of have been a trivia freak all my life and grew up with these 2 things, Bond and Beatles. Besides that, over the last 4 or 5 days, I've Googled the shit out of everything just to find interesting and fun things to talk about. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't recall off the tip of my head whom. So run with it.
Adam West.
Yeah, that. I only laugh because if I think about it, I guess it would have been kind of Daniel Craigish in the day, but all I can think of is the Adam West who was on Big Bang Theory.
Well, yeah, or the Adam West in his tights.
Yeah, but the older Adam West in Big Bang. Happy birthday, Sherman! I'm thinking,
yeah. Another one was Clint Eastwood, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself.
I can't even picture that.
You got to ask yourself, Blofeld, do you feel lucky? Well,
and the third was Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, I can't do a Burt Reynolds, but that's just not.
No,
that would have been campy.
Yeah. So I was.
Do you know who Ian Fleming? Do you know who Ian Fleming wanted for the job?
Who?
And you'll know. A lot of folks won't because he's not one of those big. At this generation, he's long ago become a who. But David Niven.
Oh yes.
Kids, Google David Niven and you'll see. And it would have been more of a dapper kind of quasi. I don't think it would have worked in terms of the darkness of the Bond in the Bond novels. I don't think David Niven had that kind of personality. But yeah, that's what Fleming wanted. But Fleming was the author. Who the fuck cares what he wants?
Right. Well, Fleming. A lot of the Bond stories are doused in truth.
Yes.
Because he modeled it after that spy, the M16 spy in Paris.
MI6.
Biffy Dunderdale.
MI6. MI6.
Good Lord.
No, you said M16. That's a rifle. MI6.
MI6. M16 is a rifle. My bad.
That's all right. You're tired. You're tired. You're working for a living. I'm just laying around looking up Beatle trivia all fucking day.
My handwriting looks like M16.
You should be a doctor writing prescription.
Hey, did you in your Googling, did you see how George Lazenby got the job?
I don't recall there was blowjobs involved, but I don't remember them.
No. He wasn't even an actor.
And never turned out never to be one, as it
right. But he bought a suit, a Rolex, got a haircut. He met with the producer and made up a resume of movies that he had been in, and he got the role as James Bond.
I've heard that story before, and I can't help but think that it had to be on a day when Broccoli and or Saltzman were just pissed off at Sean Connery and Lazenby walked in at the right time, and they said, we'll show you Connery, and they just took the first idiot that walked in the door. You or I could have gotten the job if we'd have been the ones walking in the door at the right time. But he turned down the second movie. Lazenby did.
Yeah.
He was asked to do it again, and he said, no, I don't want to get typecast. And he's like, well, that's later on, that's what you call McLean-Stevenson syndrome, and that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Hello, Larry.
Yeah, or Daniel, David Caruso leaving NYPD Blue to become a big movie star. Yeah.
Here's one more, and I bet you never heard this one.
Well, try them.
While under contract as James Bond, Pierce Brosnan was not allowed to wear a tuxedo in any non-Bond film.
Yes.
Had you heard that?
Yes, I have.
Oh, wow.
But see, once again, you have to remember, I don't go outside a lot when I'm feeling like I need to have work done anyway. I spend a lot of time. I never do one thing ever. I'm always doing 5 things. Ask my wife, and she kind of is the same way now. When we're watching television, I've usually got my phone to my left, my iPad to my right. I'm watching the show, and I'm always scrolling or looking. I think she's polyphagic, I think is what she calls it, and is able to do 7 things at one time. And so I see a lot of trivia and I see a lot of shit. And this week I was just looking up Bond stuff and Beatles stuff. So even though I did actually find a couple of things believe it or not, about the Beatles that I didn't know. And that's extremely hard to do for me because I grew up on that stuff. And it turns out that magically brings us to your chance to redeem yourself you did good with the Bond thing. Let's see if you do as well with Beatles or bullshit. All right, and here's how that one works. I gave you a little magic sound, yes or no, for the Bond thing.
Right.
I'm going to do the same thing with the Beatles stuff, and if you get it right, you will hear. Oh, yeah. And if you get it wrong, you will hear. Oh, no. See how much time I had this week to edit all these?
You had a lot of time on your hands.
Well, I can't go outside because people want to give me shit that's going to kill me. What are you going to do? All right, here we go. The Beatles concerts, and I'm talking about the Beatlemania concerts, the big ones in the stadiums in the Beatlemania years, usually smelled excruciatingly heavily of urine. Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And why would you think that to be so?
Because the women wet themselves.
That's right. The little girls screamed so hard they peed themselves, and John Lennon said one of his memories of the early concerts that just... is not a pleasant memory. It was screaming and the smell of piss.
Yeah, I did read that.
No glamour in show business. All right. Well, you've been Googling too, so chances are I won't stump you. The Vatican has an official publication, like a daily or weekly newspaper, and some years ago they did a poll for whatever reason, asking their readers to pick the best pop album of all time, and their readers picked Meet the Beatles. Yes or no?
No.
Oh, yeah. See, you got another one. You know what they picked?
Either Sgt. Pepper or Revolver.
Revolver.
Oh,
yeah. It was Revolver. Okay.
Yeah.
Good job. You're 2 for 2. Phil Collins of Genesis fame was in the movie A Hard Day's Night. Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And what part did he play?
He was an extra in the crowd of the live concert portion at the very end.
I don't know. We need to have somebody call in because you and I have been doing nothing but Googling this fucking shit all week long. And
actually, I You know what's funny? I Googled a lot of Bond stuff. I didn't Google too much Beatles stuff because I for whatever reason.
Well, you were working 14 hours a day too, so there was that. All right, let's see if you get this one, because you never know. I'm a pretty clever fella. I know how to make up shit that sounds like it's real when it's not. Ask any of my ex-wives. The Beatles officially broke up at Disney World. Yes or no?
No.
Oh, no.
They actually did. May Pang, if you believe May Pang, who was Yoko in...
Yeah.
She was Yoko 2.0.
Well, she was Yoko's assistant.
Yeah, she was temporary Yoko. Anyway, they were supposedly... She and John were on vacation at Disney World, and that's when the paperwork showed up for the dissolution process to begin, and she gave this heart-rending narrative about how he sat and stared out the window and contemplated the moon and then the Magic Kingdom and said, well, fuck it, I'm done with all this. And he signed the contract that started the process to end the official Beatle thing. So there you go.
See, I'm going to have to disagree with that, because he wasn't with May Pang until the 70s. The Beatles McCartney sued the rest of the Beatles in 1970. So he was still with Yoko when all the dissolution stuff started. Now maybe he received the final. Maybe that was the final paperwork.
Well, to all of our Beatle fans and Bond fans, but mostly Beatle fans who are watching and listening to the program today, and especially those folks, and I want to thank you, by the way. I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm sure Dave has some too. I've got a serious number of the folks. I like to call them helpers. Helpers. Whenever I post something, like, for example, if I see a cool old archival piece of video of a band from the 1960s or something, and I'll just shoot it on and share it with folks, and I'll say, here's a thing that I enjoyed listening to when I was a teenager. My helpers show up with, did you know that drummer was the 14th drummer in the long line of people? And Google freaks, or call them what you want to. So all of you, if you'd like to clear that up for Dave and I in terms of the, what was the thing?
Yeah, please do. I'm not
no, it's
saying
okay.
Your research was there, but maybe May Pang maybe that was the final.
No. You don't have to. You don't have to be polite and back off your position. I'm only inviting them to do so because they can't mind their own fucking business. Okay. And I want to give them something to do in isolation. All right. The Beatles were introduced to LSD by Bob Dylan. Yes or no?
No.
Oh, wait. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Scott hit no because your answer is correct.
Yeah.
You said no, and your answer is correct. That's what threw me. No, they were introduced to marijuana by Bob Dylan, supposedly, but not LSD.
George's dentist introduced them to LSD.
That's right. You know what? You're a perfect helper for me. Not that kind of helper, but you're a perfect helper for me right now, in proving a point I've been making for years, having done talk radio and music radio for a long, long time. Google is a wonderful thing, but it totally flushed fun radio trivia right down the toilet. Because we used to be able to throw shit like that out, looking it up in our sources, and have people call and be stumped. And now it's people like, they whip it up. They've got the answer and are calling in before you even finish asking the question. All right. Here's another Beatles or bullshit. A tree planted in Los Angeles in recent years in honor of George Harrison died due to termites. Yes or no?
Wow, I don't know. No.
Oh, no.
Okay, then I guess it did.
Well, you know what? Now I'm gonna have to give you points. I'm gonna give you both of those.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the reason why. I'm not gonna tell you why. Okay. Well, no, I can tell you why. The tree did die, but it didn't die due to termites. It died due to an infestation of live beetles. All right. And here's the one. I'm sure you get. And if you don't get it, you're going to have to slink away in embarrassment for the rest of your natural life. In 1967, Summer Love, Man, Peace and Groovy, one group sold more records than the Beatles and the Stones combined in that year. And that group was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Yes or no?
No.
Much to my surprise, you knew the answer. And who could it be, Mr. Helper?
The Monkees.
Of course it was. It was the Monkees. Hey.
And you know, Mickey Dolenz was at in Abbey Road when they were recording Good Morning for Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah, they all hung out
that
together.
session.
Yeah, they all hung out together for a long time. All right, so good for you. I think you scored like 100% on that sucker. All right, well,
hey,
yeah.
You want to know something? And this is a little thing. You know, the Beatles were famous for not licensing their music for any television shows or commercials. You knew that, right?
Yes.
The song "Good Morning, Good Morning" was used in a Monkees episode by Mickey Dolenz as their alarm clock. And all he did was called Paul and said, "Hey, Paul, I want to use this in the TV show." And Paul said, "Yeah, go ahead, sure." So that's a little bit of trivia for you that a lot of people don't know. The Monkees were the first people to use a Beatles song in a television show.
So you watching and listening today, or whenever you're doing that with our program here, if some bully comes up to you and says, "Hey, tell me who was the first, person to let, or that Paul McCartney said it was okay to use Beatles songs in the commercials, and if you don't get it right, I'm going to punch you in your temple until you fall down dead," you're home free. Because you're going to be able to tell them that was them. All right. I thought about rim shots, and I thought about politics shots, and I thought about flu shots, and I thought about, because I love the ba-dump bump stuff. And to wrap it up, I thought, well, we can't go a whole Bond and Beatles show without doing Bond and Beatle ba-dump bumps. And so I went to the trouble to write some, or steal some, as the case may be. And I think you'll enjoy them. And we've got our own little ba-dump bump. All right. Every year, count them, every year, James Bond has to stand in line for over 2 hours to renew his license to kill. I actually didn't write that. I Googled Beatle jokes, and the term was used loosely.
That's pretty good.
Here's a fun question. How many Beatles does it take to change a light bulb? Well, it takes 4. John to come up with the light bulb, Paul to claim half of the light bulb, George to complain his light bulbs are never considered, and Ringo to actually, of course, change the light bulb. All right. Dave, you're going to disappoint me if you can't come up with the punchline to this one. I'm going to take a shot. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I know you pretty well. And I just made this up in my head. If Oddjob had left Goldfinger to go to work for Spector and Ernst Stavro Blofeld, he probably would have been called
Hand job.
Blow job. Hand job. Where the fuck did you get hand from?
Reminiscing. I was just reminiscing.
Ernst Stavro Handfeld? No, I don't think so. All right. Now, we mentioned a minute ago, factually speaking, that a tree memorializing George Harrison was killed by actual Beatles. And that's true. The actual Beatles, of course, were killed by Yoko Ono.
Wow.
All right, Dave, I put another one in just for you, buddy. And it's a riddle. See if you can get it. You won't, but it's for fun. How does 007 like his women?
Well, I would say shaken, not stirred, but
you're very close.
What? I give up.
Shaven, not furred.
Oh, there you go.
All right. And last but certainly not least, when did Paul McCartney write Silly Love Songs?
I have no clue.
1962 through 2019. All right, that's all I got. And by golly, we're actually on time. You got anything you want to use to wrap it up?
I got one question. Do you know who Jimmy Nicol was?
Of course I do. You want me to tell you? You want to tell? You can't. Beatle trivia, Bond trivia, especially Beatle trivia, because that's I'm 50, 60 years into studying and knowing, and that
was good. I got one more.
Well, wait. Tell everybody who Jimmy Nicol was.
Oh, Jimmy Nicol filled in for Ringo. Ringo was out
64
in the Australian tour.
64.
And,
Ringo had tonsillitis and couldn't go on the road.
Right.
Yep.
Lennon and McCarthy would often ask him how he felt he was getting, he's coping, and he kept saying it's getting better. And that was kind of that's where they got the title for that song.
Yeah. Boy, don't I wish I'd been hanging around those guys in the day. I would have just been popping off with little phrases all the time, hoping against hope that they'd use one of them for a song, and I could have retired to Malibu. But,
here's a question that has many layers. Okay. Do you know where the band played its first British performance under the name Beatles?
No, not to be able to recall, no.
They played it at December 17th, 1960 at Liverpool's Casbah Coffee Club.
Okay.
Do you know who owned the Casbah Club?
Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart.
No, Mona Beth.
The mother of...
Pete Beth.
Who was the...
drummer of the Beatles.
And got fired, and then Ringo came in, and then, of course, Pete got him back because he put out a solo album some years later and very correctly called it Best of the Beatles.
Did that have many layers or what?
That had more layers than than Rachel Green's famous Thanksgiving dessert.
And the closest that the Beatles came to a reunion when John Lennon was alive was at Eric Clapton's wedding to Pattie Boyd, who was George Harrison's ex-wife.
That's right.
Paul, George, and Ringo played. John was invited, but he did not attend.
Yeah, they were all still pissed off at each other in those days.
Yeah, so, but had he been there, I'm sure he would have jumped up on stage and played with the other three.
And It ended as it was supposed to end. It was a wonderful thing. It lasted as long as it did. And you know what? You can't go home again. And that's the way it should be. I don't want to see, and don't get me started. We'll do a whole show on what I call the artificial bands. They mean well and that whole thing, like the Eagles. It's not the fucking Eagles. Vince Gill is in the band. It's not the Eagles. I know Fleetwood Mac, same thing. I know what they're doing, but it's just not. It's not the same. It would be like John, Paul, George, and Joy Behar. Come on. I got Behar on the brain. All right, we got to go, but here's what I want to tell you before I hit the end credit button and roll out of here. First of all, I promised at the beginning of the show that we talked about trivia. There is a little chunk of music in the movie Help that pays homage to Mr. Bond, and they used it on the original Capitol Records soundtrack as the introductory piece of music leading into the song Help. It's also in the movie, because it's like a 7 or 8 second snippet of music, and I'm going to use that as we roll out of here with the end credits. But I wanted you to know that, so you'll be listening for it and be able to tell your friends, hey, there's a piece of James Bond music in one of the Beatles movies. And all my helpers out there, be sure and take note of that and send me all the other details that I'm totally overlooking, okay? What else you got, Dave? Want to say bye-bye?
That's all I got, my man. That's all I got.
All right. As always, a pleasure to be with you. And one of these days, we're going to have to get together again. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, you had to think about it?
No, I just don't see a time when that's going to happen in the near future.
Okay, my good and loving friend Dave Buzzkill and I would like to say farewell to you. Enjoy yourselves. Beatles, Bonds, wash your hands, and we'll see you on the Audiophiles.
Audiophiles.